Providence, Rhode Island, March 12, 2019. Security cameras captured everything. Marcus Holloway, 58, senior defense attorney, $4.2 million annual partnership, stood over a homeless man in Judge Frank Caprio's courtroom and spat directly in his face. The gallery gasped. Bailiffs moved in. Caprio froze for 11 seconds. Timestamp verified. Holloway's worn leather briefcase sat on the defense table, same one he'd carried for 30 years. What nobody knew, that briefcase held a Polaroid from 1987, a newspaper clipping, and a handwritten note that explained everything. Caprio's face showed something the cameras missed. Not anger, but recognition. "Mr. Holloway, my chambers. Now." The briefcase stayed on the table. What Judge Caprio saw inside would end a 30-year career and reveal a secret Holloway had been carrying since he was a law student. The viral video got 14 million views. But the real story? That's what you're about to hear. For 30 years, Marcus Holloway was Rhode Island's legal titan, criminal defense specialist, 87% win rate, $600 an hour by 2015. Designer suits, calm demeanor, the kind of lawyer who appeared on local news as the voice of reason. He did that 40 times. Documented. Compassionate advocacy, the Providence Journal called it. He carried the same worn leather briefcase every day since 1989, a gift, people assumed, from a law school mentor. Nobody questioned it. Nobody looked inside. But there was a pattern colleagues noticed if they paid attention. Holloway declined every case involving vagrancy, homelessness, or street-level desperation. Over 200 cases in 30 years, always citing conflict of interest, never explaining. Something from 1987 shaped every decision after. You're about to find out what. March 12, 2019. James Sullivan, 62, homeless veteran, trespassing charge. Judge Caprio's courtroom was filming for Court in Providence, the show that made him famous for compassionate rulings. Holloway was assigned as public defender, rotation system, no choice. First time in 30 years he'd handled a homeless defendant. Sullivan sat disheveled, apologetic, Purple Heart recipient. When Holloway entered and saw him, colleagues later said his face changed. Not anger, something colder. The hearing started normal. Sullivan explained he'd been sleeping in a church doorway, trying to stay warm. Caprio listened, nodding. Holloway sat silent at the defense table, knuckles white on his briefcase handle. 20 minutes in, Caprio called a recess. What happened next? 3 cameras caught from different angles. If you think you know where this is going, you don't. 10:34 a.m., timestamp verified. During the break, Holloway approached Sullivan at the defense table. Words were exchanged, audio unclear on the footage, but lip readers later claimed Sullivan said, "Do I know you?" That's when Holloway leaned forward and spat directly in Sullivan's face. The gallery erupted. Bailiffs intervened, immediately pulling Holloway back. Sullivan sat frozen, spit running down his cheek, confused. Judge Caprio didn't move for 11 seconds, the longest silence anyone in that courtroom had ever witnessed from him. Then, quietly, "Mr. Holloway, my chambers. Now." Holloway walked out, leaving the worn leather briefcase on the defense table. A court officer photographed it as evidence. Nobody opened it yet. Inside were 3 items that would explain a 30-year career built on fear and a single night in 1987 that Holloway never forgot. Wait, this gets crazier. The Rhode Island Bar Association opened an emergency inquiry within hours. The viral video hit 14 million views in 72 hours. Every major legal blog, every news outlet. The legal community was shocked. Marcus Holloway had a spotless record. No complaints, no sanctions, nothing. The FBI ran a routine background check because the incident occurred in a federal courthouse. Agent Torres, assigned to the case, noticed immediately. Holloway's reaction was disproportionate to any normal courtroom stress. This wasn't a breakdown. This was personal. Torres started digging. What could trigger a distinguished attorney with 3 decades of perfect conduct to commit assault in front of cameras? Judge Caprio refused all media comment and personally sealed the briefcase contents under court order. But he told Torres one thing: there's more here than assault. The hunt was on. Investigators pulled 30 years of case files. The pattern emerged fast. Holloway had declined over 200 cases involving homeless defendants. Every single time he cited conflict of interest in internal memos, never explaining further. His law firm accepted it without question. He was too valuable to challenge. But there was something else. Between 1987 and 1989, Holloway had a 2-year gap in his resume. Law school graduation to first job. Most attorneys transition in months, not years. Former classmates from Yale Law were contacted. He changed after graduation, one said. Wouldn't talk about those missing years. Another, Marcus never explained what happened before he started practicing. Torres found the briefcase receipt, purchased 1989, New Haven pawn shop. The original owner's name was on the invoice. Not Holloway's. You're about to lose it. James Sullivan's background check revealed what investigators initially missed. Vietnam veteran, honorable discharge, 1973. Homeless since 2011, living in Providence. Family estranged. No significant criminal record before 2015. But here's the detail that changed everything. Sullivan was also from New Haven. In 1987, the same year Holloway had his resume gap, Sullivan worked construction on a downtown New Haven project. Same city, same year. Torres pulled New Haven police records from June 1987. There it was. Assault incident report. Charges filed, then dropped. Victim's name redacted per privacy laws, but the description matched a young law student. Attacker, employed construction worker, intoxicated, entered pre-trial diversion program. Case closed, no conviction. Sullivan's employer had intervened, paid restitution, got him into rehab. The record was buried, but someone had kept proof. Wait till you hear what was in that briefcase. Court order executed, March 14, 2019. The briefcase was opened under seal in Judge Caprio's chambers. 3 items inside. First, a Polaroid photograph dated June 14, 1987. The image showed a young man, clearly Holloway, maybe 25, disheveled, bloodied face, sitting on a New Haven street corner. The background was recognizable to anyone who knew the city. On the back, handwritten in different ink, initials JS and the date. Second item, newspaper clipping, New Haven Register, July 1987. Headline, Law student attacked by homeless man, charges dropped. The article mentioned a pre-trial agreement, restitution paid, attacker entering rehabilitation. Third item, handwritten note on lined paper, dated 1989. I became what I feared. Never forget who I was. Holloway's handwriting, verified later. The twist nobody saw coming. Sullivan didn't remember any of it. Traumatic brain injury, 2003, wiped years of memory. He had no idea who Holloway was. The story reconstructed from police reports, witness statements, and Holloway's own later testimony. June 14, 1987. New Haven, Chapel Street, 11:40 p.m. Marcus Holloway, third-year Yale law student, walked home late from the library. Finals week. James Sullivan, construction worker, intoxicated after losing his job that day, sitting on the sidewalk. They made eye contact. Words exchanged. Nobody documented exactly what was said. The altercation escalated. Sullivan, bigger and angrier, beat Holloway badly enough to send him to the hospital. Stole his briefcase, the original one, containing Holloway's notes and identification. Sullivan was arrested at the scene. Holloway pressed charges from his hospital bed, face swollen, ribs cracked. But Sullivan's employer, trying to avoid bad publicity for the construction company, intervened, paid Holloway's medical bills, offered restitution, promised Sullivan would enter rehab. Charges dropped, deal closed, except Holloway never forgot. The Polaroid, taken by Sullivan in some drunken impulse, was found at the scene and returned to Holloway with his belongings. 1989, Holloway graduated from Yale Law. By then, the physical injuries had healed. The psychological ones hadn't. He developed what psychologists would later call trauma-triggered avoidance, a phobia of homeless populations rooted in that one night. Before starting his first job, Holloway bought a similar leather briefcase from a New Haven pawn shop. He placed 3 items inside: the Polaroid Sullivan had taken, the newspaper clipping he'd kept, and a handwritten note to himself. A reminder, he later said, of vulnerability, of the version of himself he never wanted to be again. His career choice made sense now. Criminal defense, where he could control the narrative. Work from a position of power. Internal law firm memos, subpoenaed during the Barr investigation, confirmed he'd been declining homeless-related cases since day one. 30 years. Over 200 cases. Nobody questioned it until March 12, 2019, when the rotation system forced the encounter. Sullivan walked into that courtroom and Holloway saw the face that had haunted him for 32 years. The man didn't recognize him. That made it worse. In Holloway's mind, the logic was clear. He doesn't remember me. That realization, according to his later testimony, triggered something he couldn't control. 32 years of carrying that briefcase, that photo, that reminder, and the man who caused it all had forgotten. The spit wasn't planned. It was a physical manifestation of rage that had been building since 1987. Judge Caprio, with 40 years on the bench, recognized it immediately. Not malice in the legal sense. Trauma response. He'd seen it before in veterans, abuse survivors, people carrying wounds nobody else could see. Caprio reviewed the briefcase contents, the background reports, Sullivan's medical records showing the brain injury. The legal question was straightforward. Assault. The human question was harder. 2 lives damaged by one night in 1987, intersecting again in 2019 under the worst possible circumstances. Caprio made a choice that was unprecedented in Rhode Island legal history. Closed hearing, March 15, 2019. He proposed restorative justice. Holloway would face consequences. Sullivan would receive support, and both men would have to confront what happened. The twist, both agreed. March 20, 2019. The Rhode Island Bar Association announced its decision. Marcus Holloway, 2-year license suspension, $50,000 fine, mandatory trauma therapy. His partnership was dissolved by mutual agreement. The firm couldn't keep him after the viral video. Legal career effectively over. Public reaction split immediately. Half saw an unforgivable assault. Half saw a man whose trauma had never been addressed, finally breaking under impossible circumstances. The video spawned national debates about PTSD, justice, and whether redemption was possible. James Sullivan was placed in a veterans housing program, fully funded. In his first interview, confused by the attention, he said, "I don't remember 1987, but I forgive him. We're both victims of something that happened a long time ago." The briefcase remained in evidence. The footage remained online. And Holloway's office at the law firm, 30 years of plaques, awards, case files, was packed up in a single afternoon. What came next, nobody predicted. April 2019, private mediation session, court-appointed mediator present. Marcus Holloway sat across from James Sullivan for the first time since the courtroom. Holloway explained 32 years of carrying fear, the briefcase, the items inside. Sullivan listened, struggling to understand an event he couldn't remember but that had shaped another man's entire life. The conversation lasted 4 hours. At one point, Holloway said, "I became what I hated, someone who dehumanizes another person." Sullivan, according to the mediator's notes, responded, "I was drunk and angry and I hurt you. I'm sorry I don't remember, but I'm sorry it happened." The agreement they reached was unusual. Holloway would fund a homeless legal aid clinic in Providence. They'd name it after both of them, Holloway-Sullivan Justice Project. Launch date, November 2019. The briefcase would be donated to the clinic as its founding artifact, a reminder that trauma can either destroy or transform. 2020 to present. Marcus Holloway, license suspended, volunteers at the clinic 3 days a week. Intake coordinator, helping homeless defendants prepare for court. Unlicensed work, unpaid, the opposite of his former $600 an hour life. James Sullivan works alongside him as a peer counselor, sharing his own story of homelessness and recovery. They don't talk much about 1987. They don't need to. The briefcase sits in a glass case in the clinic lobby. Inside now, the original Polaroid, the clipping, the note, and a new photo from 2020 showing both men shaking hands. A plaque explains the story. Judge Caprio attended the clinic's opening, gave a short speech. Justice is also healing. Local news covered it. The viral video still circulates, but the story underneath, the 32 years of fear and the transformation that followed, that's what matters now. Holloway gave one interview in 2021, low-profile podcast. Mostly unnoticed, the host asked why he kept the briefcase all those years. Holloway paused for a long time. "I carried it to remember I was once powerless," he said, "to make sure I never felt that way again. But you know what? It made me powerless in a different way. Fear controlled every decision." Another pause. "Now it reminds me we can all change, even from the worst moments." The worn leather briefcase still sits in the clinic lobby. Brass clasps tarnished, handle cracked from 30 years of use. The items inside haven't changed, but what they mean has. The story started with spit and rage and a courtroom full of cameras. It ended with 2 broken men finding something neither expected, a way forward. The briefcase stayed. The fear left. And the legend, that's still being written,